Well, thank you all again for participating in the first Grand Rapids Community College Peace and Reconciliation Conference. It's been a good day. We've had a number of excellent sessions and a wonderful dinner thanks to Chef Luba and Chef Joel. And as I say, when I spoke to Mr. Hume the other day, he was very apologetic that he wouldn't be able to be here tonight for health reasons. And again, I told him that our thoughts would be with him during his recovery. And what we wanted to do tonight, before we get to Mr. Hume's video address to us, is we'd have a man come up here who spoke to the conference earlier, but someone who's known John Hume for 40 years, who's worked very closely with him, right, as a fellow activist in peace and a member of the Peace and Reconciliation group in Derry in Northern Ireland, and that is John Mccourt. And so, John, would you come up here a little bit and tell us about the man we're honoring?
I want to thank the chef as well and the musicians who appear to have gone. Thank you all for being there today. I've known John Hume for 40 years. First time I met John Hume was actually a couple of days after the first Civil Rights March in Derry on the 5th of October 1968. And just at that meeting, one of the first things that came to my mind was in 1965, as part of the unionist policy of deprivation, particularly of the nationalist community, the unionist government in Stormont decided that there was going to be a second university in the north. And that university wasn't going to come to the old historic university city of Derry, that it was going to go to a small unionist enclave on the other side of the river at Coleraine. And John Hume motivated over 10,000 people to take part in a protest, a rally, all the way from Derry to the building at Stormont to protest against the allocation or the refusal to allocate the university to Derry. And it actually was, I think my first experience. I remember signing the petition, and I was too young to go to university, but I remember signing the petition, and I actually remember that was one incident in John Hume's very, very long social, political career that made a vast difference, I think, on a lot of people. Because not just was he talking about addressing the university coming to his city, the city of Derry, but he persuaded the unionist membership on the corporation to back him and join him on the protest that went to the unionist headquarters at Stormont to protest. John Hume was also a founder member of the Derry Credit Union movement. I think, and anybody that knows anything about credit unions will know that every now and then we are so glad that they're there. The Derry Credit Union. He also had been a teacher at St. Colum's College, and he holds a very, very unique position, and the city of Derry holds a very, very unique position. Sorry, Armagh. And Belfast, sorry. Because of the city of 110,000 people, the city has 2 Nobel laureates, of which John Hume is one and Seamus Heaney is the other. Both of them teachers, and both of them originally students at St. Colum's College. And the fact that they were students at St. Colum's College came about as a benefit right across the working class community in the north, because the 1947 Education Act actually made it possible for people from a working class background to enter third level education. In fact, second level education and then enter third level education. John Hume had been, as I said, an advocate of civil rights, a lifelong admirer of the work of Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King. His book is filled with quotes and references to Dr. Martin Luther King. John Hume, as I said, unfortunately, just wasn't well enough to be with us. I went to see him on Monday, And I went back to see him on Wednesday, and even on Wednesday, he wasn't prepared to give a commitment that he wouldn't turn up. And I think the final decision was his doctor's on Friday. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't here, because it's a guy I think certainly Derry is proud of. And a guy I think Ireland should be proud of. And a guy I honestly believe that when the final chapters of the story and the process that brings around an end to conflict in Ireland, John Hume's name should be one of the first in the book. And I'm really proud to be a fellow citizen and a colleague of John Hume's. Thank you.
Well, we're about to play the video, and again, the first person we'll see speaking to us in the video, his name's Tony Johnston, and he's another person who's worked with Mr. Hume for a long time and also would have liked to be here. But he also asked to speak for a few minutes about Mr. Hume before he'll turn over the video, and Mr. Hume will address us from Derry. Okay, so here's Tony Johnston.
Hello everyone, I'm Tony Johnston, and I work with Roger and Gary, and with Bob and with Stacey on the programs in Ireland. I should have been with you today and tomorrow, but unfortunately I had some surgery about 5 weeks ago, so even though I thought I would make it, in the end I had to cancel my trip. And one of the greatest pleasures for me over the last number of years has been working with everyone at Grand Rapids Community College. And before I move on to introduce Mr. Hume, which is the main purpose of me speaking to you, I would like to congratulate the staff at Grand Rapids Community College, and particularly Roger Schlosser, but also Gary and also Stacey for the hard work they put into setting up the programme in Ireland that affords such a wonderful opportunity to so many Grand Rapids College students. And I didn't think that their efforts could be added to, but along came Bob Hendershot, the organiser of this wonderful conference, and he added so much to the effort, built upon the effort that Gary and Roger have put in. But of course I can see Gary and Roger's hand behind what's happening at the conference. I would like to share with you the experience I had as a result of my work with John Hume way back from 1988 until 1998, when I was part of the Derry Boston Ventures effort, which secured 1,400 permanent jobs into the city of Derry, where we had an unemployment rate among Catholic men in most parts of our city of up to 80%. This organisation called Derry Boston Ventures came about because John Hume and his contacts in America realised very early in the Troubles that one of the biggest things that had to be fixed in Ireland was the unemployment crisis among particularly the nationalist population, and that one way of trying to do this was to try to attract investment from the US. And this particular project was highly successful in that it attracted $120 million of investment into the heart of the city of Derry, where at that time there was really no heartbeat. And this provided the heartbeat. And today the 1,400 people who are employed there are employed in professional retailing organisations that help to attract a lot of extra spending and a lot of entrepreneurial activity to the city of Derry. But now let me move on to my main task in speaking to you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. John Hume. John has been part of my life since I was 11 years old, and indeed part of my parents' life long before that, because my family was one of the only families in a part of Ireland where John Hume was fighting for votes with his party, the SDLP, and my family was one of his supporters. And we had a phone, and John used to spend lots of time in our house making phone calls on behalf of the Social Democratic and Labour Party, of which he was a founder and of which he later was leader. John has received over 50 honorary doctorates from US universities and colleges. He has been a member of the Parliament, and he's retired now, but was a member of the Parliament in Westminster for 25 years, a member of the European Parliament for 25 years, and won numerous awards, among which, of course, are the prestigious awards Nobel Peace Prize winner, of Gandhi Peace Prize winner, and of Martin Luther King Peace Prize winner, of which he was a recipient some years ago. And John is very aware of the wonderful piece of art that has been created to be given to him at this conference, which he unfortunately could not attend, and is looking forward so much to being able at some time to pay back the honour that has been afforded him by this conference. So without further ado, I introduce you to John Hume.
Well, I'm very, very sorry that I can't be with you for health reasons, because I'm getting hospital checkups at the moment. But I'd like to express my deep gratitude to Paul Collins and Stephen Ender for having invited me to come. As we are now living through the greatest revolution in the history of the world, the technological, telecommunications and transport revolution, as a result of that, the world of today is a much smaller place than the world of the past. Therefore, we're in a stronger position to shape that world, and we should therefore create a world in which there is no longer any war or any conflict. And the way of doing so, of course, would be to send to any area of conflict the principles of conflict resolution. I learned my principles when I was first elected to the European Parliament. And when I arrived in Strasbourg on the first day for the European Parliament, I went for a walk. I crossed the bridge from Strasbourg in France to Kiel in Germany. I stopped in the middle of the bridge and I meditated. And I said, there's France and there's Germany. If I'd stood in this bridge 30 years ago, I said, at the end of the Second World War, the worst half century in the history of the world. And if I had said in 30 years' time, you'll all be united in a united Europe, you would probably have sent me to a psychiatrist. But it's what has actually happened. The European Union is the best example in the history of the world of conflict resolution, and its principles should be studied and sent to any area of conflict. And those are the principles which I was able to bring to the conflict resolution in Northern Ireland and to the peace process for Northern Ireland. What are they? Well, when you look at the European Union, principle number one is respect for difference. All conflict is about difference, whether it's race, religion or nationality. And respect for difference is the first principle of the European Union. The second principle, and the principles that followed, as I say, 2 world wars, the worst half century in the history of the world. At the end of those wars, principles for difference and respect for difference was the first principle of the new European Union. And the second principle was institutions that respect those differences. European Council of Ministers, all countries are there. European Commission, the civil service of the European Union, all countries are there. And the third institute, European Parliament, all countries are there. Members of the European Parliament are elected in all countries. And then, what they're then doing, of course, is they're working together in their common interest, the social economic development of Europe. They're spilling their sweat and not their blood. And in so doing, of course, they're breaking down the barriers of centuries. And the new Europe has evolved and is still evolving. Here in Northern Ireland, we have done this. We've used the same 3 principles. Principle number 1, respect for difference. We have 2 communities here that were always in conflict with one another. There's now total respect for both in the Good Friday Agreement. Second principle is institutions that do that. A Northern Ireland Assembly elected by proportional voting that ensures that all sections of people are fully represented. And that Assembly proportionally elects the government of Northern Ireland, which ensures that in government are representatives of all sections of the people. And the third principle, they work together in their common interests, the socio-economic development of Northern Ireland, the spilling their sweat and not their blood. And of course, all that, as we do that down the years, that will break down the barriers of the past. And New Ireland is now evolving and will still evolve. And as I say, those are the three principles that should be sent to any area of conflict in the world. And they're principles that could be summed up in three words that you in the United States know very well. A pluribus unum. From many we are one. The essence of our unity is respect for our diversity. The time has come to make a pluribus unum the philosophy of the entire world. Thank you, and I'm sorry I can't be personally with you.
What we would like to do next is invite a great friend of the college and a noted artist to come up here. His name's Paul Collins. And Paul Collins was the artist who Coretta Scott King asked to design the Dr. Martin Luther King Peace Prize Award, which Mr. Hume has also received in the past. And so, Mr. Collins, would you join us? Thank you.
This is my mother, Rita Collins. She's 97 years old, and she never thought we'd get to the mountaintop. And she is just excited about the fact that we all are at the peak of the mountain. Some time ago, she tells a story. Do you mind if I tell the story?
No, go ahead. You're going to do it anyway.
We moved into a neighborhood that was all white. And one of these days, we're going to stop using the color thing. I mean, that's just obnoxious. We need to start doing it. But anyway, Mom had never been into an all-white community, especially a neighborhood before, because she's from Kentucky. And she was a little bit afraid when we moved in the house. And one day, there came a knock on the door. And Mom ran into the closet. She thought it was the Ku Klux Klan. So we opened the door, and there were our neighbors, the Stokeses, and all their kids had a plate of food. They came to welcome her. And from that point on, she's been very comfortable about integrating. She's come a long ways.
Sure have.
Right?
Yes. Long.
And the interesting thing about Mom also is that probably a third of her is Irish. So we were getting into the Irish music. Another third, Native American, and then African American. And because black was considered so bad, it was contaminated her other parts of her culture. Mm-hmm. So that's why she's called black. Isn't she really black? I mean, look at her. She got a job a long time ago at Herpelsheimer's, and she said she was the first black woman to be able to be a salesperson. Mm-hmm. And she was so happy about it. They thought she was white. And she still doesn't know it to this day. I have to tell you also that everybody always wonders how I get so much done, how I accomplish so much, and it's something us guys got to stop doing. Women are our partners. They make us look better than we are sometimes. And I want to introduce you to my wife, Carol. And I have some good news for you. I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I met our president yesterday. And first of all, I like his name, Stevie Wonder. Second of all, you know, Juan left some pretty big footprints. I noticed he's got some pretty big feet, if you haven't noticed yet. And if you haven't also noticed, he looks like he's a man of color. Or is that a tan? But listen to me really good. Because Grand Rapids, Michigan is a very unique city. It's really a city with a conscience, a social conscience that goes deep. And that's one of the things I like about Grand Rapids. All the things that I've accomplished here, it's because of the people who supported me, who aren't the same color I am. And that doesn't make any difference anymore. And once you get out of your neighborhood, you know, if you stay in your own neighborhood long enough, you get kind of contaminated about the whole color thing, who you should like, who you shouldn't like. Get out of there.
'Cause you
Get out of your...
couldn't go anywhere.
Go ahead.
You couldn't go anywhere else. You had to be in the black neighborhood if you were black.
But once I got out of my neighborhood and started living around the world, living on an Indian reservation in South Dakota, the Sioux Indians, living in Israel, living in Gaza, living in Japan, all of a sudden I had to reinvent myself. And trust me when I tell you something, man's inhumanity towards man doesn't have a color. Because one of the things I found out, we would like to think white people were so responsible for the slavery. Well, they were, but so were black people. And the one thing that you don't need to do anymore is feel guilty about something your grandfather did a long time ago. You're not responsible for your grandfather's sins. The question is, what are we going to do about it today? Don't look back, because you can't change what happened in back of you. And we are marching forward. A lot of great things are happening as far as people for once putting the race thing beside you, because listen, we all have to get there as one, or we ain't going there. You can't get there one group versus another group versus another group. When you start to think about it, we all have the same things in common, no matter where you go. The Russians love their children. Africans love their children. When are we ever going to get to the point we realize that we really are just one? We have differences. We wear different clothes. We have different language. We have different religions. But basically, we all want the same thing. We got to just stop it. And this city is a great example of people who are successful, who believe in this city, and make things happen for everybody. I mean, we have more multinational racial people who live in Grand Rapids than any place I know of, probably with the exception of New York or maybe Canada, but Grand Rapids has done a marvelous job. And I can't tell you enough how I would like for you to stop calling me the black artist. It just doesn't exist. It's just stupid to identify people by their color. Any place else I go besides the United States, I can't get away with that. I'm in Israel, and there's a great big article in the Jerusalem Post, famed black artists that live and paint in Israel. So Chaim Herzog wants to meet me. He sends a limousine up to Jerusalem, and I go in his office. And I'm sitting there, all the media's there. And he peeks out the door, closes the door. He does it about 3 times. So I tell his press secretary, I'm done. I got to go. That's all he's going to do is peek through the door. I got to go back to work. He comes out and walks over to me and grabs my hand. Paul, where do you get that black stuff from? I'm darker than you are. So I have to tell him, listen, if you got all day, we'll go into that sometime. It's stupid, but that's the way they look at you when you're not in the United States. Now look at Mom. I mean, just take a good look at her.
Please don't.
And you know, one of the things I like also about the United States, and you got to remember something, those kids are our future. And one of the things I found out about kids, they don't listen to what you say. You better be a role model. You better be an example. I remember there was a bunch of kids who were fighting on a street on Division Avenue. And I didn't really quite understand what a role model was. There was about 20 kids. And the police weren't quite sure what to do. And so my friend and I just got out of the car because we were nosy. And all of a sudden, they saw who I was. They stopped the fight, and they come over and started talking to me. That was the first time I realized what a role model was. They stopped fighting because of me. But we all are role models. In this school, we can't have one kid prevented from having education, because with education comes wisdom and understanding. And that's another thing I like about Grand Rapids. No young person has to be without getting an education, because there's all kinds of ways and foundations for them to get them, but we got to get kids in school and keep them in school. And you should see what we've done in the inner city with some of the schools, where some of the schools in some of the cities around the United States, in the inner city, the schools are dilapidating. You should see the state-of-the-art schools that we've just built here. If you get a chance to take a ride around Grand Rapids, we have the Andel Institute. It looks like the United Nations. You won't believe, when I was 11 years old in Grand Rapids, there were slums on our side of the street, the tracks. Guess what? The slums have just about disappeared. We have a unique city that I'd like to see a lot of cities copy, because we're doing it right. We really are. And I'm really proud of Grand Rapids because of that. You guys saying, oh. I'm going to unwrap this picture. Carol, why don't you do it? Yeah, you two do it.
This is for John. Tell them this is for John.
And this is for John from the people of Grand Rapids. It's the hands of life. Thank y'all for coming, and remember, don't screw it up. We got a chance to get to the mountaintop. Just accept everybody for what they are. And one more thing, just one more thing. When you're voting for Congress and senators, start voting for character. I think we forget that sometimes. And I think that's sometimes why we get idiots in government. And I'm not saying they're all idiots. I'm just saying that's why we get them sometimes. We got to start voting for character. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Paul Collins. One more time, Paul Collins. Well, we're going to continue honoring Mr. Hume. I'm about to welcome one more person to the podium here, and that is Dr. Stephen C. Ender, who in August of 2005 became the 5th president of Westmoreland Community College. And for more than 30 years before now, right, Dr. Ender has held numerous teaching, counseling, administrative positions, and has published extensively in refereed journals as well as textbooks. Dr. Ender is a native of Virginia. He's taken master's and doctoral degrees in education from the University of Georgia and completed postdoctoral studies at the Snowmass Institute in Colorado and at Harvard University. And I'm very pleased to announce that today is Dr. Ender's first day as the president of Grand Rapids Community College. And he's about to come up here. He's about to come up here and make a presentation of his own, but Connor McGinn and Desmond Murphy wanted to come and make a presentation for Dr. Ender before we get to that part. So, Connor McGinn, Desmond Murphy.
Gurmayagat, Bob. Myself and Des are delighted to be here. We had a fantastic day today. We really enjoyed it, and as a token of our appreciation, and as a gift from the people of Newry Mourne, which is our district at home, which includes South Armagh, the Mayor of Newry Mourne, Coleman Burns, has asked us to present Steve on behalf of all of the people in Newry Mourne to you as President of Grand Rapids Community College. A plaque with the crest of our area, which has the hat and the staff of St. Patrick, the Irish Sea, the cottages and the roads of South Armagh and the mountains of Mourne.
I'm going to take the hat. I mean, if you're going to give me the moniker, I'm going to take the hat. You should just know that. What a way to begin your presidency. This is quite an honor for me to be here tonight, and I'm so thrilled that the timing worked out with our move. I wasn't able to attend the conference today. I'm literally practicing peace and reconciliation in my household right now as you try to unpack your worldly goods and figure out with your spouse where we're going to put all these things. It's been quite the interesting experience. It's my honor, though, as my first official function and as the 9th president of Grand Rapids Community College, to present a medallion tonight. And John, I think you're going to come forward. And this is a new award for the college. It's the President's Medallion, recognizing John Hume for his work and excellence. And on the back, we've said, the Peace and Reconciliation Conference, GRCC, Presidential Medallion, presented to John Hume with our most sincere gratitude, May 2009. So if you'll give this to John, we would really appreciate it. And I do have some closing remarks, but I think it's important that I recognize some guests that are with us tonight. First, and perhaps most important, would all of our students please stand? This is the future of peace and reconciliation. You know, I am just absolutely delighted to see so many students here. I actually, when this conference first came kind of across my email page, I thought about it and I said, now, what kind of audience will we have for something like this? And they were turning people away. I mean, that just says something in itself. That's a statement about this community, but you saw all the students that stood up. It's a wonderful statement about our students, and they are our future. And we are so thankful to have wonderful role models here for them to really see how you make change happen in a very productive way. We have some other guests, and I think it's important that students, you recognize that they are with us tonight. The Mccourt family made a very sizable gift to this institution. And because of that gift, David and Michelle, we were able to, and still are able to, purchase state-of-the-art equipment for this facility as we advance workforce development, and many students benefit from your scholarship, so we thank you very much. Please stand and be recognized. And Mr. Collins, I don't know if your mama is Irish American or Native American or African American. I do know she's a beautiful American. I heard some stories about Roger Schlossler before I began my presidency, and they were enhanced actually on the ride over to the reception last night. And Roger, I know that you are the spark plug behind all of this and all the trips, and I heard the stories and I said, no. And then I met his friends from Ireland. I said, yes, this all starts to make some sense for me now. Bob, you have certainly picked up the reins. Roger, I know you're proud of his work. And Bob, please, we should recognize Bob Hendershot one more time. He has done a fabulous job. Now, continue the fine traditions that Roger has started, but there are some things in Roger's background, if you don't want to repeat them, that would be fine also. I was somewhat relieved to hear that you had retired, Roger. Peace and reconciliation. I had some prepared remarks and I threw those away. I had just gave this some thought from my own perspective, actually yesterday and then again today. It's amazing to me that we live in a world where we see such horrible things happening to people by people. It's amazing to me that we live in a world that is still seeing major conflicts around the globe on a daily basis. I'm sometimes overwhelmed with that level of conflict and how do we resolve these issues. But for our students and for all of us to hear firsthand from our wonderful speakers, this is about learning how to compromise. This is learning how to articulate your ideals. This is about learning how to advocate forcibly, but not destructively. We need to take the lessons that you're learning from this conference and apply them in our everyday life. I mean, it starts at home, and it starts in our neighborhood, and then it starts in our city, and then it starts in our metropolitan area, and then it spreads to our state and across our country and across this world. And it's all about leadership, folks. I mean, this is leadership. It's principled leadership. And I am so proud. I've had nothing to do with this at all. And the more I get into this, I am just so proud that my community college is hosting such a wonderful event and that so many of our students are here and so many people from the community. So you have all made my first 4 hours very meaningful. As Roger said, it's all downhill from here, it'll never be topped. We're going to work on that, Roger. Are there any other announcements for tonight? Okay, so let me just say in closing that it is my pleasure to be here with you. I look forward to many years of work and play with all of you. I think this is a wonderful community, and Karen and I, my wife, we're very proud to be here with you. Thank you.